My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era, and today I have a very special guest jumping on the podcast. I have Police Chief Nishan Duraiappah, and I'm going to call him Chief Nish as he gave me permission before the podcast to do so. So if you don't know who he is, he made big news a few years ago. He's Peel Region's police chief and the first police chief of South Asian descent in Ontario's history, and also the first police chief of Tamil descent in all of, I think, North America. And he currently leads a force in one of Canada's most multicultural cities, where more than 60% of residents identify as visible minorities. So Chief Nish, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Ara.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of starting at the beginning. I feel like adulthood, a lot of things that the decisions you make as adults and kind of where you end up eventually being is a huge part is played by kind of how you were brought up and like the things you're exposed to. So could you tell us a bit about your family, your upbringing, and kind of how that played a part in you eventually, sitting where you are today as a chief police officer?
Yeah, thank you, Ara. And yeah, for sure. I am a Sri Lankan Tamil. I was born in Colombo, Sri Lanka. My father's family was from Jaffna, mom's from Badiklo. And I'm on just a little background. My dad's side, my dad's brother was the mayor of Jaffna in the 70s. And my mom's side, obviously from Badiklo. But we, in the mid 70s, after I was born, just a couple of years old, made the decision with multiple of my parents' siblings to make the move to Canada. So we, immigrated here, came to Toronto, did the same thing where we lived with multiple families in one home. And, my parents kind of just went where the work took them, which was to the west end of the GTA. And my dad worked at a bank, my mom worked for the province of Ontario. And so very early on, the typical immigrant story, they literally came with, like, at that point, you weren't allowed to bring your financial assets. You could only bring your physical, whatever you could carry, like the suitcases, etc. So not to be cliche, but it was one of those typical stories. But nonetheless, I think we've all been so thankful to come to this great country and all its blessings it's given us. But the story just turned into me going through, school in the west end of Toronto, the GTA. I went to elementary school in the city in Don Mills Overley, and then moved out to the west end. And just in a nutshell, I was like a complete average student, vanilla ice cream, like right up the middle. Not extremely athletic, not really great academically, not very good at the arts. But if anybody were to say, hey, what do you think of Nish back in high school? They would probably say he kind of went right up the middle of everything. But just like many in our community for multiple generations, like Amma and Appa, they wanted, their thing was, whatever you do here, it has to exceed the sacrifice we made coming here. And for them, that was exclusively doctor, engineer, accountant, something with a professional designation. And so in my mind, right from the beginning, that was ingrained. But midway through school, and when I was in high school, and back then, just not to date myself, but back then, the typical jobs were either fast food or like marketing job, like telemarketing. That was when telemarketing existed. But one of my teachers at school just grabbed me in the hallway and said, hey, Nishan, would you be interested in this placement program at the local police department for the summer? It pays and you get to learn about policing and etc. And I thought, this is different. I won't be flipping burgers like my buddies. So I said yes, and I had no idea anything about it, and thought it would be cool. And sure enough,
what age was that?
That was when I was 15, 16, turning 16.
Oh, okay.
And I did the typical thing. I was just playing. My parents got me into things that didn't cost a lot: soccer and swimming. You had to buy a pair of shorts or a pair of running shoes or soccer shoes. And so I went into the policing, and apart and aside from being interested about the job itself, and there's some certainly exciting elements to it, is what really struck me, Ara, is the I discovered who the people were behind it. Some of these people, their moms, dads, cousins, volunteers, coaches, and it's just a typical thing you don't get to see unless you know somebody in policing, and I certainly didn't. And they were really kind to me. Like, at the time my dad took ill, and they would pick me up, drop me off to work, and then I'd start, like, I probably nagged them, like I bugged them, I think probably even after my program while I was in high school, because at Christmas, Amma would bake like a tray of like chicken and biryani rice, would drop it off at the division for them on Christmas Day and things like that. And this is pre-email, but at any rate, what happened was a focus and attachment to the relationships, which tweaked me to, this could be a possible opportunity. So I did the typical thing. I never told my parents that I was interested in policing. I continued to fool them that I was going to go to university and do something that required a designation. And sure enough, when I was at the very end of my last year at university, and my mom was on vacation visiting her brother in Vancouver, and I got a call from one of these officers who I maintained contact with, and he said, "Hey Nish, we figure you're probably done school right now. Would you consider applying? We're doing a huge hiring push." So I applied, and sure enough, by the time she got back, I already had my first interview scheduled, and she wasn't very happy, to say the least. But hey, listen, that was how I got into policing, and now 26 years later, all my family at that point were like, "This guy's crazy. What's he doing?" But now they're the biggest proponents because they have understanding of it. So that's a little bit of the road traveled and how I got to the door of policing.
Yeah, I feel like with any trailblazer, and like whether it's a profession or like ethnic group, when you're one of the first, you always get a lot of flack for doing something totally different that people don't understand. And then it's like 10, 15 years later, it's like, oh yeah, I always knew that, Nish was onto something. I just, I was just testing him or whatever. Like I hear that from so many different people, their parents. Like I had a friend who, like, my best friend's an actor, and when he was doing acting at the beginning, his parents like didn't tell anybody. And then as soon as he was on TV, they're like, "Oh, that's my son," and I supported him, but like I knew the full story, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
If someone listening to this and like they want to be a police officer, what are the steps? I don't know if that's changed since kind of you started, or like, if it's any requirements that changed in the last few years. But I'm curious, how do you become a police officer?
Listen, like a lot has changed really in 26 years, especially the awareness that policing needs to represent the community. It needs to be reflective and informed by the community. And I think in policing they've gotten better at that. But here in the Ontario context, there are provincial standards that are set by the province to minimum requirements, and you can pretty much go to any police agency's website and see it. And there are certain pre-qualifications that are required to get, like you have to do a physical, you have to be able to pass physical testing, aptitude testing, etc. So the standards are kind of regulated provincially, and there's a lot of opportunities to practice, support, and do that. But once you get an idea, once you get those boxes checked off, you're then basically able to apply to any police organization in Ontario. And every police service is as unique as and different as their communities are. And I often tell people, listen, first of all, you're definitely not getting into policing for the money. your heart's got to be in the idea of, like, some of the challenges we've all seen in the last 2 years that have come to the forefront, but it really needs good quality individuals that can really improve the well-being of the community. It's moved on from just the idea of law enforcement. So I say, hey, if you have a heart for that, and clearly you're interested in bettering the safety and well-being of a community, that's the first step. The second is, you do not need to come to the doorstep of policing with a law or law and security degree. Clearly people do, and they're really, some of them are really excellent candidates. But we're looking for people that have really diverse backgrounds, either employment, previous work, life experience, international, just volunteer, you name it. We'll do the rest to train people on how to get there. So it is a very challenging one. We have thousands and thousands of applications for just a handful of spots, but it is certainly a very competitive process. But there's a lot of now adjustment to the concept is we can steward somebody and shepherd them through the process, so that we don't just expect you to come up at the doorstep firing on all cylinders. We can help you and shape you and help you guide you in that. So there's a lot of info, and checking websites and any police agency will help for sure.
This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me. And you talked about kind of representation, like the police officers, you want to they want to be in places where they're representative of the people they're helping. So I guess from like your perspective, like I look at places obviously like Scarborough, and I think Peel as well. Obviously a lot of Tamil people there. So have you seen more and more Tamils kind of start joining the ranks, being a police officer? Like I know a couple of people personally that are Tamil and police officers, but I felt like this was completely unheard of, like when I was in high school or university.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. All right, like when I started 26 years ago, I knew of the other 3 Tamil coppers in Ontario, and 2 of them are in Toronto, and one was in Durham, and since then, what I realized, and I've had a lot of young, interested women and men who are interested in policing come to me offline and say, hey, I live in Scarborough, I want to apply to Toronto, or I want to apply to York, or I'm going to this X, Y, and Z. What do I do? And what we became aware of is that we need to, promote this as an honorable and positive profession for everyone. And so if people just enter into policing that are Sri Lankan or Tamil, it's a benefit for all of us. So now we have about, I belong to a group called the Tamil Law Enforcement Network. It's a bunch of people in the public safety sphere that are wanting to help mentor and promote and strengthen relationships for incoming Tamils that are interested in policing. And now we're about, I can say about 60 to 90 across the province, and now we have people across multiple provinces at the federal level. So it has really changed. I think our generation and our parents' generation are starting to see, and that we are very much influenced by our parents and grandparents, and I think that it's opening in such that it's seen as an opportunity. And that's one of the things I've tried to use my platform to really say is, look, there are many opportunities for us here in policing. It takes all cultures to be here at the doorstep, for sure.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was into all the detective and anything solving crime, but I never thought of it as a viable career because, like you said, it was just never an option presented to me. It was like I had very few options presented. So like you said, the generation, like our generation and the generation below, they'll hopefully get those opportunities. And you talked about, like, obviously it's not going to becoming a police officer is not about the money, especially considering the risk reward ratio, right? I mean, there's other jobs you can do if it's just about the money with less risk. But before I ask this next question, I'm curious, whatever you're comfortable sharing, whenever I ask like my police friends, what's, because before you took on this role, you were kind of, doing detective work and like patrol and things like that. What's like the most memorable or crazy, thing that you remember? Like, I'm sure you have many, but like, what's the most memorable time, or like maybe a time you felt like you were actually in danger, whatever you want to share. I'm just very curious about that.
But the good first like 10 years of my policing, I spent in investigative work in drug and undercover investigations.
Oh, wow.
Which really amazing. It was like, I would say I get to do what other people go to the movies for, right? Like, and so that was really amazing. And not to be cliche, I was literally in undercover capacity because, I was a short Tamil guy and I'm not a very big guy, and I didn't look like the atypical police officer. And so I got to, be able to do things that were really cool. But, if you're asking me what was some of the most memorable stuff, is that I had some amazing, exciting moments, the ones that are, adrenaline related. Those ones you don't forget, but they're not necessarily for me the most satisfying ones. It was funny because when I was a constable and I was a detective constable, and I was on a joint forces project with the RCMP, and I got called to be told that I was getting promoted my first rank as a sergeant, and the chief at the time told me, "Hey, Nish, you're getting promoted. Congratulations." So in my mind, I thought, okay, I'm gonna help run one of these investigative teams. He said, Nish, we're gonna assign you to diversity and they called it race relations then. We now call it EDI and whatnot. But they're going, I almost fell off my chair because I was on the phone and like literally in a week, I went from buying illicit narcotics and drugs to buying samosas at a community event, right? Like, and so it was a really remarkable, but then I realized that there's a whole nother side to policing that makes the world go around. Like, we look in the last year or two where people have really questioned the trust and accountability of policing, especially everything geopolitical post George Floyd. We know that the strength of being connected to community is as great as the need to meet public safety. So can I tell you, in the years that ensued after that, I got to see that side of the house of policing, which was really how important the relations are in really knowing community well. Then I went on to like the innovation technology. That was amazing and satisfying too, because we're notoriously in policing like decades behind the private sector for technology. And so, if you're of a forward mind and you're innovative, you're, potentially you want to look at seeking solutions that are new. That was a great space for me. So those have been like really satisfying. I've had like a real diverse background that has been really and it doesn't come down to one critical incident or one hair-raising story. And maybe because I've been around for so long, it's getting harder to remember them. But I tell my kids some of the stories when I'm offline.
Yeah, you kind of talked about a lot with the image of what police officers are portrayed as. Usually when we hear about them, it's most often something negative, right? Something negative in the news. But I think of, I watched a show called For Life, and I don't know if you know what it's about. It's about a guy who got sent to jail, on a false charge. But there's a scene where he's Black and he's talking to a Black police officer, and they're having this conversation where he's like, why are you here? And the police officer who he's talking to is just, like exactly what you said. He's like, I've been on the wrong side of police encounters. I thought instead of, just being angry about it, I can just be on the other side and try to promote change or instill change from within. It might be like a hard journey, but he's like, that's why I'm doing it. So that's like a great point you brought up.
Yeah, I want to do a quick shout out to there's a lot of Sri Lankan Tamil officers that had a really difficult time. If you remember, when especially the Tamil community was on the Gardiner Expressway, we had Tamil officers on the other side of them, that were deployed specifically either because they have language skills or new people in the community that were trying to bridge the narrative. And many of them had very difficult internal personal struggles because they knew where the heart of where the narrative should be, and yet they were trying to facilitate it. And now you look at, we're celebrating Tamil Heritage Month, in Thai Pongal, and very important things that are nice and wide and open in our community and so this is all part of the journey, right? Of everybody's experiences. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, brother.
No, that's a great story. Speaking of journey, you went through, you became a police officer, you rose through the ranks, and then obviously a few years ago you got the big role. You got to become a police chief, which there's no other Tamil person in North America that can say that. So when you heard about first of all, how did you hear about it, and what was your reaction to hearing about it? Was it very anticlimactic, or were you excited? Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, listen, it's been a real honor and absolutely very full of excitement to take on this role. And I see my role as my job is here to obviously serve the community, but we have almost 3,400, 3,500 employees at Peel Police, officers and civilian, and they're some of the most remarkable people committed to it. And so, my job here is on this platform is to do better for them and for the community. But so that's been a real honor. Just I got to say that off the start. But I have never throughout my career been motivated to just to aspire to be a chief, which just might sound weird to people. I really sometimes wake up and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? But it really was about I've been really interested in like two or three main big buckets, and one is I really see there's a need and an opportunity to change policing from a modernization and approach to serve the community. The second is I mentioned to you earlier is I'm really interested in being innovative to find solutions, and I really love the people. Like the people are so good, and so for the 26 years I was at another police service, Halton Police, which I thought for sure that I would retire, which is, just on the West End, they're a mid-sized police agency. I would retire from there and, be very happy. And when the opportunity came open at Peel, I just thought, listen, this is one of, you get the second and third largest cities in Ontario in one region. You've got Pearson International Airport, which we're responsible for policing, 1.4 million population, a lot of South Asians, 60 to 70% a racialized population. It just screamed, hey, my areas of interest at this larger platform, potentially we can, as with the team here at Peel, do a remarkable job. And so I just kind of entered the competitive process to come here, just saying, hey, listen, I'll just give them Nish. If it works right for the community and the police services board, then it is what it is. If it doesn't, I'm very happy where I am, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to have come here. And yeah, again, I think I see people, and I tell people, if anyone's listening to this podcast, if you work in the private sector, healthcare, you're in education, or you're in a small workforce or a large organization, if you get into a position of leadership, whether it be informal or formal, and you're doing it for the dollars, the salary, or the pension, can I tell you, in my heart of hearts, it's the wrong reason. It's certainly a benefit for being there, and you need to consider that, but it's the wrong motivation, right? And if you're there to help the people around you or improve your work as a whole, then that's the right reason. There's this comment that says ambition is the enemy of success, and it is so true. I think I know that I'm just here for a finite period of time to move the yardstick forward, and somebody else will come and continue it. And I think that's the way we see it. But yes, I'm proud of the fact that I also get to represent an experience that is reflective of our community and perhaps many other immigrant communities. But I often tell people that I'm a police officer first that has a very unique life experience that helps inform my lens to everything, which is where I think we all are, whether you're born here, multi-generation Canadian, or you weren't. Everybody's got a life experience that helps inform it. So I'm just really super excited to do that here at Peel. It's an amazing opportunity.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you. And have you found the type of skills or the type of skills required to do the job as taking a big job versus when you were sergeant or like just kind of doing undercover work? What's the skills required? What's the difference in that?
Yeah, can I tell you, like I've learned and matured as I've grown, and I'm continuing to learn, and sometimes it comes from mistakes. Like I think there is no pathway and a roadmap, clear pathway to success. If anyone's listening to this, I would say that there's no ideal career path, and I never had it scripted. You sometimes rarely control your opportunities, but what I can say is that, I think throughout all of it, I've always focused on relationships. I've always not let an opportunity pass. And then I've also always, started, and more recently, seen challenges as a platform to improve. So those three things continue to have helped me seek new opportunities and propel ourselves. The other thing, really is you never do this alone. Like I can tell you, like, a lot of my colleagues are my family here in here in my previous organization, and not to be corny or anything, but there's that Robert Ingersoll has that quote that says, we rise by lifting others. That is so true. You cannot go it alone, Ara, in anything. And so we're really like, can I tell you, if I reflect back even to that high school teacher that told me, that high school teacher was at my swearing in 2 years ago to become chief of police. It's because, the focus on emphasis, relationships are number one. Those officers that call me when I was in university are still somewhat. So, you're really strengthened by those around us and your approach for sure. And then I've also had a couple of I've got personal mantra that I espouse to people that has kind of helped me stay focused. And so that's all really helped me along the way.
And would you say, like, I mean, as an outsider looking in, I feel like one of the things that you do a lot more of, or maybe it's just me, is like a lot more communication or media work. Like, I know even if you are like a beat officer, like detective, you still have opportunities to speak, but it's more around like a specific case versus like you probably speak more on like bigger issues, like, diversity in the force, or if there's a negative, case involving race relations, like you talk about that. So is that fair to say, like media training or like just being really good at media work is an important part of the role?
It really is for me, particularly at my level. Listen, if you were to ask my frontline people, they'd say that guy's not a cop. He's a politician. And really all the credit goes to them. Like they're civilian, our frontline people, they do the work, civilian or sworn. My role is I'm responsible for this whole place. And so yes, that's the good, the bad, the ugly. And you can't be in this space if you don't want to engage people, and that's means sometimes at the worst times, and at the best times. But I'm like, I thrive on this part, Ara. Like I was pretty close to, if I wasn't in policing, I'd see myself in broadcast or journalism or something. I like talking to people. I like being out front. If there's a microphone, like I'll fight you for it, right? So I enjoy the communication piece, and I think I've got a different approach to communication. I think I don't believe in the whole like stand in front of a podium, I'm the chief and this is the way. Like I think we got to be who we are. Like vulnerability, I think that's what makes us the best. Is like I have children. I'm a coach. I play live music. I play sports and martial arts, and I'm involved in the community. I volunteer because I think the public expects, us and people in roles like mine to be as close to reflective of a real community as possible. We are part of the community. So I think from a communication standpoint, that's a very effective one. Like social media, I've been on social media for a while, and like I think really this last year has been a difficult time in social media with cancel culture and just the effortless ability for people to say things in public forums without any fear of stigma or repercussion has really been tainted my feeling of it. But these are important vectors of communication to the public. Doing your podcast is a perfect one. People can't see me, but you're getting a little slice of who Nish is, and perhaps what I say to my people. I talk to you the way I talk to my people. It's a trickle down effect for sure.
Got it. And you talked about, talking about incorporating technology in the police force, because traditionally the police force has been behind, and you were championing that roadmap for innovation and technology. So what are some technologies that you see playing a part in, the future of policing?
Yeah. Like I think, listen, like, yeah, I always joke, first of all, big analytics, big data analytics, not from a crime standpoint, but from an analytics of how we spend time and how we inform. The movie Moneyball, like, and people don't even know what the movie is. It came out like 15 years ago, but we're still in policing, building our analytics capacity. So that's huge. We can help. We have a small. Everybody's heard about the defund the police movement, which really, apart and aside from its direct implications on you can't turn the tap off on public safety and immediately turn the tap on other ones. But I think in the heart of what people were saying is strengthen other human services so there's less over-reliance on policing. And the way I see it is technology is a platform for me to do that. We have thousands of officers on the road. They have mobile devices. It's not just a plate of glass to answer a phone call or an email. but I have a direct way to connect. 80% of what my officers do is non-criminal. So it's in mental health, addictions, homelessness, social disorder, older adult isolation, youth, food insecurity. My officers are in these homes. It's an amazing opportunity. Now we have applications on their phones. I put apps on their phones to help them connect people directly to services, social services that can support it. We're going to online, like here with the language diversity in Peel, we're going to have the ability for officers to do a virtual translation services. So we got a third-party translator. We're still using flip notebooks like you do in TV, investigator, electronic notes, with the ability for people to send, you have to, when you call 911, you have to pick up the phone, but the ability to send visual images, data images into our 911 communication center for us to get out there. We put, from a trust and accountability, telling our story better. In this last year, we put out thousands of body cameras on officers. It's not a new technology, but it tells, but we have the ability to two-way stream. And could you imagine us in the home of a parent who just needs help with a youth that may have maybe a health and wellness, mental health issue, to two-way stream to a crisis worker in my communication center to help navigate the issues of it. Like the potentials are endless. And, I told my people is it's not to get bright, shiny things in technology. It's to help be a platform for serving the community in a more collaborative and thoughtful way. Now, behind the scenes, we're using technology for a variety of different things, a camera and digital technology. We have a broadband capacity. I could tech out on you very shortly, but artificial intelligence, AI for processing data and solving crimes quicker. There's so many opportunities for that. And all that's happened in the last year and a half, by the way.
The entrepreneur in me is always like, if there's an industry where they're slow to adopt the technology, like I deal with healthcare, there's a good opportunity for an entrepreneur because it just means that it's going to be harder to get into, but once you're in because, police, I'm sure like a police division, you're not going to want to switch your providers for like the technology you're using. Once you pick one, you're going to use it for like 10 years. So that's just me thinking out loud.
Great. Again, I think we need to be more nimble and switch to cloud and platform technology. But here's an example. One of the things I've asked my team to do this year is look at collaborative ways to solution. We've got educational institutions, think like academic institutions that can help solution public safety, community safety needs for us instead of us toiling on it. And there's an entrepreneurial and business element to it where we can help start startups to help come along public safety. So that's a real passion of mine from an innovation standpoint.
That's good to know. Money can be hard to come by, but here's a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free? What's that piece of advice you'd give to like a young person today that's looking to, a police officer is one of the possibilities or options for them?
Yeah, okay, so here's what I say to young people is don't let your youth detract you. Some of the, the most, progressive and successful people, I think this day and age, you think, okay, well, when I get to a certain age, or if I can get to that point, I'll give that a shot. I said, we can't let youth detract us. So whether it's policing or not, the first thing I say is the value of relationships are so critical. You have to be careful on that, but develop allies in different places in relationships. So whether it's policing, get to know somebody, reach out to somebody that because that becomes like a safe harbor or mentor, or sometimes even a champion. I mentioned to you that the path into something isn't always clear. So don't get frustrated if you don't get into policing first, or you have a career of your choice. I tell anybody this is transferable. Is you can't always get into something with a direct A to B pathway. I say I'm not a sailor, but if you look at the art of sailing and sail, like they don't sail directly from one point to another. They do a thing called tacking, where it goes this way and that way. And that's the analogy I say is your pathway to getting into something may be a little longer and may have some frustrations, but that's part of the journey. The other thing is, don't let failure set you back. Obviously take responsibility for your outcomes. I think, like, I don't want to ask how old you are, but everybody knows who Jordan is, Michael Jordan. And if you peel back into his stories, like, not only did he win 5 MVP trophies and 6 NBA champions, let alone the NCAAs, but the first couple of times he tried to get on in his freshman year in the basketball, he got cut. He was told that he wasn't fast enough, tall enough. He did not let that bog him down. Imagine if that stopped him. Like, you cannot look at a jersey, if it's NFL or football or pro soccer in Europe, without a Nike like Jordan jumping on it. And so he himself said, I failed over and over again, but that's why he succeeds. You have to continue to accept failure and not let that do it. The other piece, is they got to learn. You got to research and read. Like, if it's policing, for example, check their social media platforms, look at the news, look at the look and feel of their leaders, the people, the officers. And then, reading is huge. Like the average CEO, they say in North America, reads 60 books a year. Like, I don't read that 60 books a year. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, mainly because of time, but that helps you think. And then I think people have to have a personal vision too, I think, which is, their quiet thing about where they aspire to be. And again, I'm a big proponent of don't let opportunities pass. It's like the sliding doors thing, because it's that, relentless, pursuit of advancement requires you to not let some opportunities pass, because they may not work out, but they strengthen you, and at least it gives you an experience.
That's some great advice. Out of curiosity, how old do you think I am?
But you're gauging, because I can see you and nobody else can. There's no limited gray hair. I'd say, early 30s, late 20s.
I'll take it. I'm 37 actually. I'm turning 38 this year.
See, it's our Tamil culture, right? Like, I tell people ask me how old I am. I shave my gray hair off, but I keep telling them it's the constant coconut oil that I put on my.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 40. I just turned 48.
Wow, 48, Mike. Okay, it's definitely something in the Tamil movement for sure, because you don't look a day older than 35 maybe. So that's good. In terms of, I always like to kind of look back and look forward. So if you're looking back, you go in a time machine, you get to sit down with 16-year-old Nish. What do you tell him?
Oh, at 16, time machine. I would probably have given some of the advice to me that I just gave you, because like, I'm 48 and I'm just now having clarity on that, right? I kind of was a bump on the log. I was a very introvert. I told you I was like vanilla ice cream, and very awkward. I at some point came out of my shell. I wish I did that earlier, to be honest with you, because I let a lot of things pass me by that would have maybe not been, significant to my pathway in life. But just out of like, I always had this feeling of like, I won't do that because I'm not really good at it. I'll wait till to do the things that I'm, more comfortable with. I guess stepping into uncomfortable spaces, I would have probably done that earlier. Because I was early in the whole come to Canada, where there was like literally 80 Sri Lankan families in Toronto at the time, and we knew them all. Sinhalese, Burgers, Tamil. You didn't know, we knew them all, and everybody had the same immigrant. But we were very I conformed a lot to what my parents had set before me. I probably would have stepped out into things that, like, not to challenge my parents, but to help educate them on the why it's good. So I would have stepped out in a couple of different spaces. My dad passed away when I was really young, before I became a police officer. And, not that I regret anything, but, as time goes on, memories fade. I probably would have savored a few more of those moments. That was before you could take a lot of photos, and you can take photos and everything. There's limited media record of that. So that would be, on a personal level, something I would have done.
So just, I guess, looking back at how you were raised, is there a different way that you're doing with your kids in terms of, like, encouraging them to like take or explore whatever they're interested in, or do you still kind of take some elements of, because I feel like there's good and bad in terms of like how our parents raised us. So I'm just curious of how you've adapted to your parenting style.
Yeah, let me first say, like, I love how my mom raised me. She was a single, like she pretty much did it as a with my dad when my dad had passed, but and she did an amazing job. But they didn't know what they didn't know at that time, right? They really just didn't know. And so I say that to you because now what I'm doing with my children, they're like they're the three of them under the age of 15, is you know, when I'm gone, they lose one more connection to our culture and traditions. I'm really trying to super saturate them with elements that I think my mom was so focused on. We got to get on our feet here in Canada. You know, we didn't speak a lot of Tamil at home, and like, you know, the cultural elements that I think she was just so focused on just surviving. We didn't spend a lot of time on appreciating. So I'm doing that with my kids now, like, and really spending time on the value of why and what on what. One thing I want to resonate is our community is so strong with our relationships, familial relationships, and that is one thing that I am forcefully ensuring that my children recognize, is that family is number one, right? Number one all the way. And so those are elements that I've done, and I haven't really deviated a lot from what our parents did, other than encouraging them to see what's possible, right? I think there was a bit of conservatism in my parents' generation about, oh, Nishan, don't do that. This might happen. You might get injured. Like she unregistered me from wrestling in school. she called the school and unregistered me. I didn't know that you could do that as a parent. Like, and I think, oh well, like, who knows what I would have done. Football, she was like, American football, that was like a no-go for her, because you're gonna get a neck injury and something's gonna. She must have saw one article of somebody getting, you know, paralyzed, and that became the filter. Like, those are the things that, like, you know, now I never played hockey, I never skated, and you know, I have a 10-year-old boy, and listen, if at all anything, to skate with his buddies when he's an older adult, I want him to do that. I don't need him to be an NHL, but you know, those are the things that we didn't think of doing, because we're, you know, and there's no criticism to them at all. It's just,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree with you. I think the one thing I would change, I think they did a lot of things in a great way. The one thing I would change is like, and it's probably because of a lack of time and, like you said, focus on survival, but communication. I felt like when I would ask them a question about why, because you know, I think most kids are inquisitive, they want to know why. They're
Yeah,
just like, it is. That's like after the first or second time, it's like, this is what it is. Don't ask
yeah,
again. You don't ask again. So I think that's the one thing I would change is, you know, I think kids are naturally inquisitive. So if they have questions, try to be patient and answer those questions.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
100%.
Uh,
Like the whole idea of, like, you know, hey, Nishan, you got a 78 on this. How come you didn't get an 80? Like, that's the conversations I got from my mom, right? And versus, you know, now I think we're far more attuned to, okay, hey, what's happening? Like, you know, there's a participatory view to helping young people with their education, and like, oh yeah, it was a complete different approach now when you to it, right?
and looking forward, so in terms of your personal legacy, like how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
Listen, I would hate to have them say, oh, that job or his role or profession changed who he is. And so, you know, I make a purposeful effort to stay grounded with, you know, the people that have been a part of my life for, you know, 30 years or longer, and ensure that, you know, I never change who I am, because I think that's an important quality. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, I think that's great. So now we're getting to the final segment. It's a speed round. It's a game that I like to call Creator Confessions. So basically, I'm just going to say a bunch of statements, and you're going to say the first quick answer that pops into mind.
okay.
Ready?
Yep, go.
Favorite Tamil food?
String hoppers.
Something that scares you?
Insects.
Insecurity that you have?
I'm too short.
Favorite show you're watching?
My kids are gonna get mad at me, but Outer Banks.
Place you're itching to travel to after this pandemic is / over, managed, whatever you want to call it.
I'm taking my family to Sri Lanka.
A fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, okay. I got two. Okay. Sadie Mahendran, he's an amazing guy. He's on a board of directors for SAC with me. And Geeta Murthy, who's
Yes.
the ED for, and you want to go one further. Gary Anandasangari, amazing pioneer, leader, and a good friend.
Favorite childhood memory?
Is favorite childhood memory is probably going to African Lion Safari with my dad.
Something you like to do for fun outside of work?
I play in a bar band.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Favorite movie of all time?
Sound of Music.
A purchase you've made recently that you splurged on that you have zero regret about?
I bought a new guitar.
Pet peeve?
Pet peeve is when my kids say the word like.
Oh,
In
I
the
say
middle.
like a lot. If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have?
Not calling everybody I know right now.
A celebrity or just a person whose life you'd be curious to experience for one day?
Bob Marley.
A book or podcast, or in your case, like an audiobook that you've listened to recently that's had an impact on you?
Yeah, I listened to one of Brene Brown interviewing Obama about straddling duality and how it makes you manage obstacles better. That's good.
A belief, behavior, or habit that's recently improved your life?
I'm trying to work out every morning, which for cardio, because our people have like chronic heart problems, and my family, same thing. So that one's huge for me.
And finally, what's a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
I'd say stay focused, believe in yourself, and failure can't deter you. It's going to make you stronger.
Awesome. That was great, Chief Nish. Thank you for jumping on the podcast. If someone's listening to this and inspired by a story, they want to reach out, what's the best way for them to connect to you?
Yeah, no, so listen, you can go to appealpolice.ca, and through our corporate comms and media office, you'll see an email that says Chief Nish Duraiappah at Peel Police. You can email me. They're all come to me and my team, and be happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for jumping on and sharing your wisdom and your story. For those of you listening, as always, appreciate it, and see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, Ara. Appreciate it, brother.